since you mentioned world security, let me connect this to a different issue which came up in your remarks and which you make a rather powerful statement in your book. I quote, "It's amazing that people constantly miss the importance of the fact that any threat made in international affairs must be credible. The absence of credibility actually increases the likelihood of confrontation. The recipient of the threat doesn't believe it, so he carries on. Then the very choice you're trying to avoid, going to war or not, is the one you're forced to make. I saw this time after time. We're about to witness the same wretched business over Iran." Do you see a war with Iran coming?
I hope not, and I think we should do everything we can to avoid it, but I think that, as I said, I think that Iran having nuclear capability is an unacceptable threat, and we shouldn't countenance it. Look, the most difficult thing right now in politics is that, when I say this in people sort of say, "So you want a war with Iran?" I say, I don't. But you've got the calculus of risk, for me, changed after 9/11. And, I really do say to people, go and read Ahmadinejad's speech to the United Nations. Because this, after all, is what he's saying to the United Nations. So presumably he's kind of on his best behavior, sort of. But it's not simply the stuff about 9/11 being the work of American or Israeli agents and all that nonsense. But go and read what he says about women. I mean, this is, you see, the trouble is what we always want to do, and this is very, it's very understandable, is what we want to do is we want to think, look, these guys are basically like us. If we sit down around a table, we could, get along together. And the trouble is, sometimes that's not the case. And it's like when people say to me, when Ahmadinejad said, well, he wants to wipe Israel off the face of the map, and you get people in Europe often say, oh, yeah, that's just a piece of rhetoric, he doesn't really mean it. And I'd say, well, if I was an Israeli, I think I'd be a bit worried by it, frankly. It's this notion that it's somehow a game for them. And I think that in a way almost not just underestimates, it kind of disrespects the fact they do believe this ideology. I mean, it's simply some tactical game for them. It's something they actually believe. And the trouble is, the one thing that they need to know is that although we have and rightly, and this is why I like living in our type of country, we have a soft and liberal side to us, and we are open to people and tolerant and so on and so forth. We mustn't let them confuse that with weakness, because when that happens, then they think we basically don't believe as strongly as they believe. And yet I do. I just exhibit it and express it differently. But I think we have to show equal determination and even greater will. And if we do that and we exhibit it and we express it and we manifest it, you've got a far better chance of avoiding conflict, because otherwise you will get to a point, and it won't be too long away, in which you literally have to decide whether the statement that Iran having a nuclear capability is unacceptable is a statement you mean or you don't.
Mr. Prime Minister, in your recent election campaign in Britain, Britain's relationship with the United States was a topic on the national agenda. Now, you are the archetype of someone who manifests the special relationship between our two countries. What does it mean to have a special relationship? How special is it? And how special ought it be?
Well, as we were contemplating earlier, it has had its difficulties from time to time, but look, for me, what it's about is, it's not about something sentimental or simply sentimental. It's about values that bind us, that define our societies, and that we share. And you see, when people you say to me, why after 9/11 do you make the shoulder-to-shoulder speech? I think that they chose the World Trade Center very deliberately. It's not just a symbol of American power. It's a great international community gathering. Britain lost more citizens in the 9/11 attack, in one single act of terrorism, than any act of terrorism through all the years of Irish terrorism. You know? And the fact is, that binding together is something that has stood us in good stead, and it should stand us in good stead still. When we came in Europe, when we had ethnic cleansing going on the borders of Europe in Kosovo, right, and we actually faced the prospect, Europe, having had the Holocaust, then returning to ethnic cleansing, you know, thousands of people being killed simply because they were of a different faith or of a different race. Without America, we couldn't have done that. I mean, President Clinton agreed in the end to commit fully to this, and as a result of that, which was a hard thing for him to do in American politics, you know, we were able then to mount the campaign and in the end defeat Milosevic. We couldn't have done that without America. So it's not something that's even in the past. It's something we do now. We do it now in Afghanistan. We did it in Iraq. And these alliances are not, you know, things that are tested when the going is easy. They're not tested in times of comfort. They're tested in times of challenge. And I, you know, look, it was not always the most popular thing in the UK, it's true, but, you know, I actually got to the stage in politics in the end of it where, you know, I started as a politician wanting to please all of the people all of the time because we'd lost 4 elections, you know, in a row. So I was kind of into the pleasing bit. You know, I always remember there was meeting someone after our 4th election defeat, you know, in a row. We had 4 election defeats in a row, we've been 18 years in opposition. And this person said to me, the people have rejected us 4 times now. What's wrong with them? I said, well, maybe we better rethink this now. So, you know, I really wanted to do that, but I came by the end of it to realize that in government, I'm afraid, you ultimately what you owe people is your decision to do what is right. And I believed in this alliance, and sometimes, you know, people, thank you. I believed in this alliance and believe in it still, for Britain, by the way. I mean, I'm a big fan of America, but I was the British Prime Minister and I was operating for Britain, you know? And I just, you know, concluding this, I think sometimes you can just give something up that should really be cherished without almost noticing you're yielding it. And it would be a big, big mistake if we do that with our alliance.
Ladies and gentlemen, Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.